Good afternoon and welcome to RiskScout's monthly webinar. RiskScout is committed to providing insightful, thought-provoking content to bankers interested in starting and growing new business lines at their financial institutions. We provide a mix of personal and professional development to give you the tools you need to be successful. My name is Marnie Keller and I'll serve as your moderator today. Joining me on the call is Kristen Parker, Director of Compliance here at RiskScout, and Sean Matthews, Vice President of Product at OmniCommander. And also Mel Barnes, Director of Cannabis Banking at Westtown Bank. Their combined expertise in this area of emerging markets should make for a worthwhile webinar. Today's topic is marketing higher risk business lines, effectively and compliantly getting the word out. Our presenters will leave some time towards the end of the hour for our registrants to pose questions. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I think that takes care of housekeeping items for now, so I will turn it over to Kristen. Good afternoon, Kristen.
Thanks, Marnie. My name is Kristen Parker. I'm the Director of Compliance at RiskScout. I have been in banking my entire professional career with a focus on BSA AML compliance. I get to help institutions all over the United States set up programs for their higher risk banking, whether that be cannabis or hemp or MSBs, you name it, we help with it at RiskScout. So I will be serving as somewhat of your host and your compliance geek on here, but I will let Mel Barnes give a little bit of her background.
Thank you, Kristen. I am Mel Barnes, and I am the Cannabis Program Director at Westtown Bank and Trust. I have worked in this space for a couple of years now, probably 3 years now, at another institution prior to this, and we are just in the beginning stages of launching our program here at Westtown. I've been in banking for 26-ish years, primarily in operations, treasury management, operations, business development, that sort of thing. And I'm very pleased to be here today to talk to you about marketing cannabis.
And Sean?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sean Matthews. I'm the Vice President of Products here at OmniCommander. I've been working with OmniCommander for just under 2 years now, assisting all of our financial service clients with any of their digital needs. I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. So Mel, I think that it's best that you kick us off here since you have some really good background here and some good war stories to kind of tell.
Okay, excellent. So where do we start? Before we even get the opportunity to market cannabis for a financial institution, we have to make sure everybody is on board and make the decision to bank cannabis. At Westtown Bank, we bank both hemp and cannabis, and we were able to really leverage the infrastructure in place with our hemp program to launch our cannabis program. A couple of things that are really important when you're in the very early stages of launching a program is it's super important to make sure we get everybody on the board. Everybody on board, including the board of directors and executive management. This is a team effort. It requires the marketing department, customer service and support, treasury management, and risk and compliance. So I think when we look at how we might market this program, a couple of questions that come to mind are, first of all, do we want to market our cannabis programs? It's very important that we're able to find the stigma comfort level. We all know that there is a stigma that surrounds this, cannabis in general, and it leaves many banks wondering, should we be closet cannabis bankers? Should we make a big market splash? Should we combine this with our overall FI marketing? Or should it have a different brand, a different look, and a different feel? And these are all very important questions early on because it really addresses reputational risk. I think that we have found that there are many closet cannabis bankers in this space. I will give you an example. I recently have spoken to some bankers that I know personally and have worked with who all but denied that they were banking cannabis, yet word on the street tells us that they are one of the banks in the cannabis market. So obviously at such an institution, there are times when they haven't gone through this list and decided, is this something that we want to market in an effort to grow our deposits? Next slide, Kristen. So once we get down the road and get everybody on board, decide, okay, yes, this is something that the bank is interested in. It is going to grow our deposits. When you go into the planning stages of this, I'm going to say that you will be surprised at how well your efforts are received. It's a real life version of if you build it, they will come. And I would say that if this is something that your financial institution is ready to take on, the best thing you can do is engage a CRM. So this CRM tool is going to help you with your marketing. It is going to help you with your sales. You are going to get a great response to this message. And so having your CRM in place to help serve these customers and to present a consistent message is really key here. So I would encourage you to integrate your Contact Us form for auto population through your CRM. That is going to allow you to see who has responded, keep track of the correspondence with your applicants, and to make sure that you get a consistent message. By using templates, your email responses are going to be more consistent. It will take a team of sales folks to be able to respond to the inquiries once your message has been put out there. I've also listed here embedding videos to engage the recipient on the status updates. As you go through this process from marketing, whether this is outbound emails, you're going to have to take these responses and really present the customer with their expectations in the status. So we go from marketing to the inquiry, and then we field those and we talk to these people about what the bank offers and how the program works. You really need to set the expectations at that point of your customer. And in doing so, engage videos. It really engages the recipients. It is a chance for us to send them a message that they are number 4 in line, they are number 29 in line, whatever the case may be, and let them know what the process looks like. Because we all know this is not a quick process as we vet these customers to see if they have all of their ducks in a row to remain compliant, which will in turn keep the bank compliant. So should we integrate this with our regular FI marketing? There's lots of schools of thought here, and I will tell you I've seen lots of flavors of marketing and what I like to call non-marketing, and that goes back to our closet cannabis bankers. If you decide to market this, I encourage you to think about whether or not you want to use a unique landing page. Do you want to use a separate URL? We need to put some thought into branding the unique business sector, because this is much unlike the services that you expect typically from a bank. When you start looking at your marketing strategy, keep in mind your budget. The good news about digital marketing is that it is much less expensive than print and direct mail and that kind of stuff. But things you need to introduce to that budget is your CRM, your designer fees. Get your marketing department involved. If you outsource your design work, that is going to be an additional item that we want to put here in the budget. And then certainly web hosting. Unique landing pages are something to consider if you have a concern about the social stigma surrounding banking cannabis. Excuse me. Branding the unique sector is an opportunity to either marry your brand to the marketing following your financial institution's marketing plan, or completely spin this off separately and direct all of these inquiries to your own unique landing page, where you can really separate this from the bulk of your other deposit business. Do's and don'ts. So this is the part of the program where we talk about real life application of these things. So while I feel like it is very, very important to use a CRM so that we can manage the incoming inquiries as well as the correspondence back to those customers, you want to be very careful and strategically plan any email campaigns. What you don't want to do is overshoot your capacity. So I will give you a real life example of what not to do. In a previous life, as I sat down with my group to really think about how we were going to launch this program, believe it or not, we sent out 10,000 emails in one day. That's good news and that's bad news. The bad news comes in because at least 5,000 of those recipients responded. So you really need to be prepared for a large response, because you will get it. There is plenty of this business to go around, and there are plenty of cannabis businesses that simply are not banked at this time. So be prepared for that large response. Another really big tip is do not keep your messaging a secret from your customer support and sales team. These are the folks that are on the phone. These are the folks that are trying to support your customer, deliver a wonderful customer experience, and it's very, very important that they know when these emails are going out, because I promise people are going to respond.
I've heard that before.
Yes, they will.
Yeah. Well, Mel, thanks for that. And I know that probably most people know that when you market with banking, right, if there's different rules and subsets. So I'd like to kind of talk with you, Mel, about that for a minute, about, you're building your marketing out and you're building your campaigns out. There at your institutions that you've been at that have had cannabis banking programs, is there an approach that you take in consideration in a review process with your marketing compliance group who was ensuring that you're checking all these different boxes?
Absolutely. And Kristen, I would say that you really want to use all of the same compliance protocol that you would in any other market or any other sector of your business, because we still have to adhere to all of the wonderful member FDIC, on and on. Everything that would apply to any other marketing sector will also apply here. So it is very important that you work with your risk and your compliance team and you run these by them to make sure that all of these things have been covered in your marketing pieces.
Right. Right, and so we just have listed here some best practices that you need to really, you have to consider. It's really not, it's not negotiable. So these are the 6 things I think you need to really think about when it comes to ensuring that you're not violating in any of the umpteen regulations that are involved in marketing compliance in general. So being clear, concise, and truthful. You don't want a UDAP violation. I've seen them fester in banks, you know, here and there all the time when somebody gets, you know, a wild hair and wants to go ahead and send something out without thinking of all these different check boxes they have to, kind of a checklist they have to go down to make sure that everything in there is clear and concise in there and isn't misleading. So ensure that, you know, you're really digging down to your own source of truth internally to say, are what we're advertising here really what we're offering these businesses truthful, you know? So on top of that, we have deposit products. We got to, you know, include all required disclosure language. Reg DD spells out all the specific requirements for what information to disclose and how to disclose it. Check that. There are plenty of Reg DD checklists out there to help you ensure that you are giving out the disclosures as you should. Plus, you should understand that there are watchdogs out there that, you know, kind of scour around and see if people are missing disclosures to go after that, you know, from a legal standpoint. So just be mindful that you always have the appropriate disclosures. And the same thing goes for loan products. You can reference Regulation Z here. You know, the whole alphabet soup of regulations is somewhat involved in marketing, so that, you know, in this one, you have to know that particular loan practices trigger certain language that needs to be used in here. Same thing, you know, kind of along the lines of deposit products. You must have a proper representation. Representation is huge. You know, I've worked for, you know, many of financial institutions that have had to put a lot of thought into it because the footprint is unique. So you need to make sure that you're really taking in consideration your footprint, who's involved there, you know, who lives there, what's the demographics, all that, and just keep in line that your advertising isn't accidentally or you know, hopefully not purposefully violating any, you know, discrimination rules. And then when you think about all these alphabet soup of regs, you think, you know, how am I supposed to keep up all this? If you don't have somebody dedicated in your compliance team to review marketing, because marketing is quick typically, you know, it's evolving, it's a rotating door of different advertisements out there. And if you don't have somebody who's dedicated to it, or somebody that's just quasi kind of knows enough to be dangerous, you could be setting your institution up for failure. So consider automating that practice of compliant marketing. You know, there's tons of technology out there to help with ensuring that your marketing efforts are following all of the requirements set by the regulations. And then there's not a lot of talk about text messages a lot here. And I'm seeing personally way more text message advertising out there than I have in the past. So remember that when you are sending text messages, you need to make sure that you are also considering all of the alphabet soup of regs in those text messages as well. Sean, you want to take us through this?
Absolutely. You know, before I dive into here, I think Mel kind of mentioned something earlier that got me thinking, and I'd love to just throw a question your way, Mel. So you mentioned where to start, and you brought up, you know, getting the whole team on board, making sure that your board of directors was on board. And I hear this a lot, not just with high risk lending, but also just in any kind of new services that the financial institution's looking to add. How does someone, a branch manager or a CEO or a manager of a financial institution that's ready to take that leap forward, how do they get that buy-in from their team and from their board? What's some tips that you would have to offer to that?
That's an interesting question. I think part of the key is just knowing your board. You know, bank boards are very, very different, and you may have someone on your board who is a strong proponent of this, and then you may have those who have lots of reasons why your bank should not do this. In the case of my very first launch, we did have a director who had been studying medical marijuana for some time. He was a retired physician, an oncologist, and he had done a lot of work, and he could kind of look at the industry and look down the road and see that this industry is not going anywhere. So in that particular case, we were very fortunate that we had a lot of board support, because they could see that this was certainly a huge opportunity for the bank, not only a business opportunity, but we looked around at our communities. I am in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma launched its program in 2018. And if you drive down the street, you see 2 or 3 dispensaries on every corner, and thousands of grows, and this has really reached every community in the state. And so not only were we looking at the business opportunity and the deposit growth opportunity, we were also looking at our communities as a community bank and saying, wow, this is a real risk to our community. Every community in this state has been impacted by this, and there are lots of dollars on the streets, cold hard cash, and that's a huge security risk. So that is a great question, and I think it's going to differ from board to board depending on the attitude of the board of directors. But we were able to successfully show that it was a good business move, as well as being able to protect our communities as a community bank.
I love that. I think that's so significant too, right? Taking that back to what is that give back to the community, and being able to put a story behind it. It makes it bigger than that, bigger than just, hey, we're doing this new thing. It's something more. Thank you for that. Earlier you also mentioned kind of making sure to build out landing pages, and I think too, a lot of the time for people that are maybe just getting started, or maybe they want to structure it this way, financial institutions might want to separate out their primary core customer or member base, depending on what kind of FI you are, from their high-risk business. And so I think that segues nicely into the search engine optimization. And I always like to start, whenever I explain SEO, from a high-level overview of what it is. And SEO is really like the modern day Yellow Pages. Back, 80s, 90s, and probably beforehand, we were all vying for that front page, big print ad in the papers, so that we got the attention of whoever was browsing through the pages and looking for somewhere to get their needs met. And that's basically what SEO is nowadays. It's taking to the internet, you find whatever you're needing on Google, and it's everywhere. You open up your cell phone, your desktop, whatever, you're gonna go and do a Google search or search somewhere on the internet to find resources for whatever it is that you're looking for. And that's no different for a business that's looking for a financial institution to help them through navigating those high-risk business practices or business lending. And so some of the ways that you can help to influence your marketing efforts and help your financial institution get discovered is by leaning into search engine optimization. So best practices for that, conducting regular website audits. So you always want to start out with a website audit to determine what your health score is for your website, really understanding if there's anything slowing down your web pages, too heavy of an image, too light of content, not enough information, so that when bots are crawling your site, they help you get found on the internet. Also, understanding if you have any broken URLs, so really making sure that you have that site maintenance, right? If you are linking off to maybe your business lending microsite, making sure that all those links are working and they're all located in an easy to find place on your main financial institution's website. And then, of course, helping out overall with your compliance. So if you have those clean pathways, you have it to where you have the one-click answers, you're able to help stay within compliance whenever you're looking at your site from a marketing standpoint.
What did you call these again?
Keyword research is also an important factor. So you may not necessarily want to use certain buzzwords as the main keyword that you're trying to get found in. Keywords being what are people typing into a search engine in order to find your financial institution. I would always encourage people whenever they get started into search engine optimization that they do a lot of research and understand what people are looking for in their market. And you can get very granular with this. You can be as specific as I want for my website to be found by consumers who are looking for XYZ service and be very specific. And you can also make it very broad. I'm looking for consumers that are looking for just a general topic and even more specifically within a certain geography. There's lots of resources out there on how you get that research and pull that data to understand the search volume. So I'd always tell people, look for unique ways that your website could potentially be discovered without having to go for the most advertised or the most often searched inquiry. And then finally, to content strategies. Whenever you're building up your website or your microsite or landing pages, any kind of content that you're putting out into the internet, you want to make sure that you're keeping it updated frequently. You can't just build a page and then set it and forget it. You got to make sure that you're keeping it fresh, new, innovative, and really just making sure the information on there is accurate, relevant, and reputable, especially when you're talking about high-risk lending. I'm sure that geography is always changing. It can be the rules are shifting left and right. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up to date with the information that you're putting out there in front of your audience. Next slide, please. And so another caveat to search engine advertising is going to be search engine marketing, or SEM. So SEO is, we always like to say the O stands for organic, and SEM, the M stands for money. So these are going to be your paid advertising strategies. So whenever you're thinking about search ads, these are going to be the ads that appear at the top of a search result for a particular keyword. I'm sure everybody here has gone on to like Google and you've searched for something like closest restaurants near me, and then you see at the very top all those different restaurants that are popping up #1 on the search results. And it'll say even next to it, this is a paid ad, this is paid for by blah, 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 something like that. So those are your search ads. Somebody has paid for that real estate so that they get the best attention when somebody searches for those keywords that we talked about before. And so whenever you're thinking about putting in those search ads, that's going to help you kind of marry up your keyword searches and just put more conscious effort behind your ad dollars. A display ad, that's going to be where you're trying to get a desired graphic message in front of the right audience. So Mel, you talked about earlier videos, GIFs, any kind of moving images, that is king right now, especially on the internet. You think about what's going to keep someone's attention and keep someone engaged with your financial institution. Display ads, video content, things like that, that's going to help keep people focused and really get their attention when they're looking at your financial institution for your services. So these types of ads, they appear on web pages, on an app. I'll kind of go back to my example. Maybe you're looking for a restaurant and then there was an article on that same search that said top 10 restaurants in, I don't know, Cincinnati. We'll use that as an example. And then when you clicked on that article, you saw on the right-hand side or at the top of the page ads for a pizza joint or someplace that has really great tacos or something like that. And again, those are display ads. So it's another paid advertising method, and it's being brought to a consumer's view based on the keywords that they've searched. So if I'm thinking about a business that's looking for some place to get a loan with a financial institution, I might target the keyword. Earlier, Mel, you'd mentioned cannabis. So I'll use cannabis, cannabis lending or something like that. And then that person would find, based on the ad spend that you put into that, potentially your financial institution at the top of that search, or onto an article related to the topic that comes up with that keyword. And it could be any kind of high risk lending or any lending for that matter that you're wanting to advertise out there. And then I kind of touched on this already, video ads. But video ads are a great way to capture someone's attention. Again, video is king, especially when it comes to content. I think everybody can probably agree, like the world of TikTok and YouTube, those are such dominant players in any kind of social channels that we're looking at nowadays. So, and video ads, they work the same way. And I think that a lot of the time we get stuck on the idea that when we're advertising, it's a business to consumer type of strategy, but these same methods, they work when you're talking about business to business as well. So as a financial institution offering those services to another business that is looking for help with, lending or high risk engagement, finding ways that they can get that help, and just it popping up as simple as like a YouTube video makes all the difference in the world. Next slide, please. Now, one of the best ways that you can advertise and really get the most out of your ROI is going to be targeted email marketing. So outbound cold emails geared towards creating new business-to-business lending opportunities. One of the very best ways that you can get a lot of engagement for a low amount of time and cost. So general theory behind this is that 6 to 8 touch points are what are going to create initial awareness of a brand or a product in a new audience. So maybe you're brand new to this space. Maybe you're just now getting started with offering these services to your market. Being able to create that awareness is critical to helping you get that lift off. So the more times that you can reach out, that you can put yourself in front of your audience, the more likely you're going to build that interest. So targeted emails, it's another great way to get that word out there. Next thing you know, they've done that Google search, they saw your ad, they saw your article because you've got great content, you're getting discovered on the internet. And then next thing you know, there's an email now in their inbox that's saying, hey, we're new to the area, or we're just now beginning this this new practice. Why don't you come check us out? And you're creating that interest and stimulating that consideration. So how that process would work, you'd want to start by identifying your target audience. You could start out with like a very broad pool, let's just say 58 million potential B2B recipients. And you could say that's based on a specific geographic area. And you can find that based on employers or individual employees. So you could say, I'm looking for a business that I can target, or I'm looking for the employees of a specific business that I want to target. And then finding that alignment between their identity and interests, your brand, and then the services that you have to offer. So start out with a very broad audience that you're trying to reach, and then narrow it down based on who's really the person that we're trying to reach. You want to guarantee that delivery to a predetermined quantity of inboxes. So you want to make sure that you understand when you're targeting, when you're doing targeted email marketing, that you have a certain quantity of emails that you're willing to reach. And of course, making sure that you're following those compliance needs to, like CAM spam. Never ever go someplace and buy emails. You can't see me right now, but I'm doing air quotes around buy. Buying emails, that's a no-no. So always make sure that you're using a legitimate source for those directories where you're finding that information. And then making sure that, those audiences, if you're using those legitimate sources, it'll be an audience that is opted in for relevant marketing messages.
I apologize.
You can do that by using the NAICS or SIC codes, company sizes, industry groups. You can do it based on sales volume, position, all kinds of different things that you can use to help set up those parameters and really understand if your audience is the right audience. And then whenever you do any kind of targeted email marketing like this, just from our standpoint, we always recommend that you start out with a minimum project of 3 emails. 6 would be ideal, or some combination of emails that then get accompanied with a drip email. So retargeting that same audience again based on performance. So if you have an audience that you've targeted, you've emailed them with an initial offer, and then they open that email, they've maybe clicked on it, gone to your landing page, gone to your website to learn a little bit more, but they didn't quite follow up, they didn't take action. Those would be the individuals that you want to send what's called a drip email out to again, so that they then get re-engaged. And again, we're just adding to those touch points that we talked about earlier. And then finally, when you're thinking about some of these marketing best practices, there are other tactics that you can use to really engage your audience, keep your community involved, and then also making sure that you are managing the risk that goes along with the services that you're offering. So reputation management, that's a big one. So you might start to publicly announce that you're offering a certain type of high risk service. You might get really positive feedback, maybe negative feedback. Big part of that is that you are leaning into any of that exposure and any of that publicity. So reputation management, that's responding to those reviews, that's making sure that you have your business pages completely up to date, making sure that you're discoverable, not just from a quick internet search, but if somebody's trying to find you on a map, making sure that your Apple business page is up to date, your Google business page is up to date, your Yelp page, lots of those different touch points where you could get discovered and potentially get consumer engagement. Social media. So a lot of the time when we're thinking about business to business, the most prominent platform that comes to mind is going to be LinkedIn. And so you want to make sure that you're using that to promote your products and your services. And not just always making it about, hey, we offer this or we do this. You also want to use that to tie in with your reputation and celebrate your wins. Talk about, we have new employees that just started. We have this community outreach that we've just done, or we've built this great program that assists certain people in the public with, whatever their needs might be. So you're using those outlets not just to promote awareness about what it is that you have to offer, but also what you're doing within your community or within your market to help just make a difference. Tactile marketing. So this is going to be related to like print media. So maybe you did an email blast out to all those businesses that we were talking about before. You might want to follow up with a postcard. And postcards, I think a lot of the time we hear people say like, oh, that's old school. People don't, look at their mail anymore, things like that. And that's not always the case. I think that if you have really tasteful, creative on those postcards, you've really put together some great messaging, and then blending in some new methods like adding a QR code that someone can scan, making it interactive so that they go to your website to learn more about the services that you've sent that mailer out about. It just creates more engagement and helps to drive the audience to your digital services. So tactile marketing is a great way, again, talking about those 6 to 8 touch points to build more awareness around your brand and what it is that you're doing. And then finally, public relations. So we're talking about managing high risk, high compliance type of services. And so that comes along with making a public announcement about what you're doing. You might choose not to, that's okay. I think Mel, you touched on it earlier. You got to make sure that you measure your own comfort level with how much you're willing to be public about what you're offering, or things like that. So PR though, great way for you to get in front of people, talk about the success, get people excited about what you're doing, letting them know, hey, we've got this new service that we're offering. We're excited about it. We're partnering with these local businesses, and we can't be more excited to get this going. And just making sure that you're open and providing that communication so that everybody involved feels like they're part of that big machine that's running. I think I just spoke like a mile a minute.
I thought it was great. I thought, oh my gosh, I just learned so much right there. Yeah, this is really good. Marnie?
I thought it was excellent. I was I actually am going to ask a quick question about the tactile marketing and direct mail. And I'm probably showing my age by even asking, but what's old is new again. So Sean, do you have any thoughts on it?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I think you're absolutely right. So people are always going to be drawn to any kind of marketing that's very well done. So I think that if you're doing some type of paper mailer or handing out flyers or doing anything like that, you can innovate the way that that's done. Have like a cool trifold, make a cool shape out of what you're doing, or make it interactive. I get little envelopes that look like secret puzzles. I don't know if you've ever gotten a mailer like this or not before, but I'll get like these puzzles almost, and I have to figure out how to open up the envelope. And then on the inside is more information about this business. And so there's just really cool ways that you can infuse traditional marketing practices into your advertising strategy. And then, of course, mailing those out to whoever or handing them out, whatever your method might look like.
Of course. Y'all have a great day.
Okay, that's great. I think that Mel may have touched on this, but I mean, I think that the list development is so key to know who to market to. So I'm always interested in hearing more about that, and I agree what Sean said about not buying emails. But for business networking, and this is for Mel, did you reach out to like chambers of commerce or like hemp or cannabis industry associations or other networking channels? Like, were there other like non-formal marketing things that you did to try to attract business?
Yes, we did. And that's a great question, Marnie. One thing that I would like to point out is that almost every state that is cannabis friendly is going to have an agency that really manages that program for their state. And we have found that many of these states publish a list of license holders. And so if you do a simple search, you can figure out the name of the agency that governs the rules and regulations within each state. And many of those do post a complete list. They might include name of the principal of the business, the county in which they operate, their address. There's many phone numbers, there are email addresses on these types of things. And that is a tool that we used, but it's also a really good idea to talk to people that have some other influence. You know, look at your centers of influence. Look at your CPAs who are working in this space. Look at your attorneys. One thing that we really like about referrals that we get from CPAs and attorneys is we know they've done their homework on that client. So we know that they have been advised properly. We know that their entities are set up correctly and that their entity docs, their licensing, everything is in order. So those are fantastic referrals, and being able to get those from a professional organization that has already done a lot of background on these folks really lends to having a peace of mind about these. You know, there are some bad actors in this space, and it is our job to figure out who those are. But if someone else has already vetted those customers, build your relationships with those centers of influence and let them help you.
That is excellent. I have another question here for Mel. Did you have any negative feedback when you launched the program? And if so, how did you handle it?
That is a very interesting question. So, to be quite honest, in the last 3 years, I have had no negative feedback from account holders of the bank or other business interests of the bank. And maybe I'm just lucky, but I think in these communities where cannabis has come to stay, I think it's real clear that this is a legitimate business. Legitimate business owners want to be treated as such. And so fortunately, I have not experienced any kind of negative feedback from the community or other bank customers.
That is encouraging. Last question here. What would it look like if we didn't do a full-blown marketing program?
Well, I can tell you that the feedback we get from businesses, or I've heard from businesses who are looking for a bank, financial institution in general, is that if that institution is not marketing their program, they kind of have a trust factor issue because they wonder how dedicated that institution is to actually banking the industry in general. Is this going to be a pull the rug out of me at any time because you're not quite comfortable enough? I think marketing shows commitment to a program, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'd love to chime in on that. I think that when you don't launch an effective marketing plan, or really just any kind of marketing period, and it could be around a service like this, or it could be around any services that you're offering, you don't build up that awareness. And so the next thing you know, you're asking yourself, why am I not getting leads? Why is my pipeline not getting filled with, potential new business? And you start asking those questions. Was this the right move for us? Was this the right decision for us to make? And it all goes back to awareness. And if people don't know that you are offering those services, then how are you ever going to get those leads and build that interest in what you have to offer? So having that marketing plan, even if it's something small, something just to get you started, is so important to help make you known.
Mel?
I think he really hit the nail on the head there. And even something you said, Kristen, really putting forth marketing efforts in your cannabis banking does show a commitment to the program. I recently was at an event where I heard a banker say to a cannabis audience, we have opened X number of accounts and we have not spent one penny on marketing. And as I sat there in the audience, I kind of cringed at that remark because I thought that perhaps was not what I would want to say to my audience. It does not show support for the industry. I just think that it is very, very important, as we talk about, these are legitimate businesses, legitimate business people. They want to be taken seriously. And the closet banking syndrome we talked about earlier, I think that's negative for your financial institution. I don't think that it shows the support or the spirit of business that we really want to be proud of as we are pioneers and step out into this high risk category.
Outstanding. That is it for our questions and for our webinar presentation. So I want to take a moment to thank Sean and Kristen and Mel for really contributing a great webinar. As a reminder, all registrants will receive a link to this recording by email. We'd like to thank you for joining us today and hope you'll join us on a future webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.